Back to New Day Northwest. October is Rett Syndrome Awareness Month. It's a rare neurological disorder that can affect a person's physical abilities and their speech. Although it's not as rare as you might think, affecting 1 in 10,000 people in the U.S. every year. And that's why one mother is working to raise awareness here in Washington. Please welcome Bryer Schaffer. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we were speaking about this before you came on the show, and you told me that it took a while for your daughter Bryer to be diagnosed with Rett syndrome. What were some of the symptoms, and how did you know, in fact, this was what was going on?
Oh yeah, it was quite the journey for us, actually. So she developed really normally for the first 12 months or so, which is very typical with Rett syndrome. For the first 6 to 18 months, you usually don't notice. And so with Bryer, it was just kind of that she started to plateau, where we got to about 14 months and she wasn't ready to walk. But it seemed like a little bit more than that. And so we started a journey with our pediatrician to kind of figure out what was going on. And it led to a whole lot of tests with the wonderful people at Seattle Children's and Kindering and other great organizations that are local. But actually it took us a year because we just couldn't find the right fit. And finally she did a full genome panel where they actually just looked at, you know, everything they possibly could, and that's when it came back positive for Rett syndrome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about Bryer's journey in a moment, but first I want to ask you, how does Rett syndrome affect a person? Is their cognition affected?
Thankfully, no. Their cognition, they are very, very aware. But think of it as they don't have control over their body. So they have trouble walking, talking, using their hands. I mean, 99% can't speak. 50% never walk. And
how many? What is the percentage?
50% never get to walk.
Oh.
And 80% experience seizures. It's basically like they're kind of trapped inside their bodies, which is really terrible to think about. But at the same time, a lot of these kids just are so emotional and aware and loving, and so you can really communicate with them through their eyes. Many use picture cards and speech devices, and it's really amazing what we can do these days to kind of make sure that we're engaging and teaching and all of those things.
And you told me too, because the cognition is not affected, and sometimes people look at them and think it must be, and that's really painful too. It
is, and you know, I mentioned speech devices, and that's one of the things that's actually been teaching us that they're very smart and they can learn and right alongside us, and a lot of them have really big personalities, but until we started finding methods like that for communicating, it was really hard to tell because they're very, you know, they can't speak. A lot of times their bodies aren't doing what they want to, and so it's really hard to understand that they're processing everything that you're saying.
Is this progressive? Does it get worse?
Thankfully, it's not. It's not degenerative.
Okay.
And so over time, you know, their brains still stay as they are. They still learn and everything. However, their bodies can get a little bit tougher as they get older. As you can imagine, their bodies get bigger and it can be tougher for them. So they can experience more issues as they develop.
I see what you're saying.
But it's more about kind of that maturity.
Just growth.
Right.
Is there a cure? Is there any treatments and therapies?
Yeah, I wish. Right now there's no cure and there's actually no drugs or treatments, but it's a really exciting time. The first drug is in FDA approval and it's been given a fast track, and so we're supposed to hear sometime this spring if it's going to be approved. And the first clinical trial for gene therapy was approved in Canada. And so that's one of the reasons too I'm so big on awareness and you know, raising that right now, because it's an exciting time for treatments and cures, and we want to be part of that. So.
You and I, when we first spoke about this story, you completely had my whole heart, because I also have a child with a rare disease, and we were talking about how hard it is to find specialists.
Yes.
How have you and your family found support and specialists here in Seattle, and how has it been? How does a day in the life look for Bryer now?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, actually. It was very tough to find people who specialized in Rett, but there's about 18 centers of excellence in the U.S. And so we found one of those actually in San Diego, and we got connected with some doctors there, and they actually had connections up here at Seattle Children's. And so now we have a really great care team. But she also has, you know, an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, multiple PT. She goes to swim PT, regular PT. She goes to hippotherapy. So we do do absolutely everything we can. And it's taken us years, but I feel like we just have this amazing care team now. And she has a caregiver that's been with us since she was 6 months old.
Oh my
and
goodness.
she goes to school with her, and she's just the most amazing person. So we're so supported. And you know, I will say though that the thing that is the most helpful is actually other parents and the community. I mean, there's Facebook groups with thousands of parents.
Always so helpful.
Yeah, and so that's been huge for us.
Before I let you go, because of all this, I know that it's got to be hard for some parents, but you're trying to raise awareness and you're trying to raise money for this. Tell people how they can find out more.
Yeah, so awareness is huge, right? Nothing would be happening in terms of the clinical trials and all of that if we didn't raise awareness. And so October is Rett Syndrome Awareness Month, and we wear purple and we post on social media. But really, fundraising is so important.
Yeah.
And so I personally fundraise for Reverse Rett. And so it's called reverserett.org.
Okay.
And you can actually even fundraise yourself through Instagram and Facebook and all of those things. You can donate directly. There's lots of ways to get involved. So.
Bryer, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I know as a mother, you just, it amazes me how much you're working to raise the awareness. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we